Another prominent ACC basketball coach has just up and retired. What is going on in college basketball?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On this episode, we're going to talk about what the ACC needs to do to get better coverage on ESPN. Like they need to lobby for more PR. We'll talk about ACC teams in bowl games because there are a ton of them happening between now and Saturday involving ACC football teams. But Kenton Gibbs earlier today on Thursday, Miami men's basketball coach Jim Larranaga, who was in his 14th season at Miami and probably the most successful Miami basketball coach ever, because no one else had ever taken that program to the Final Four or the Elite Eight. Jim Larranaga did obviously both of those things, because when you get to the Final Four, got to get through the Elite Eight first, but multiple Elite Eight runs, a Final Four run just 2 years ago, and pretty shocking news late morning today that Coach L is retiring. Your reaction, Kenton, because what Coach L said about it sounded very similar to Tony Bennett of Virginia, who retired right before the season started.
Yeah, so I believe and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something along the lines of after the Final Four run, we had 8 guys that said they were going to hop in the portal seeking better NIL deals. And here's my only gripe about that. And this is the reason I'm kind of looking at this saying, like, it's never any fun when the rabbit has the gun, because number one, Tony Bennett and especially Jim Larranaga left their teams in the lurch. You're not retiring in this way. It was like, hey, I coached the end of the season. Please find somebody else. I'll be on the advisory council to help you. You've got one coach that quit, what was it, a day or two after media days for basketball? Yeah. And you got another quitting mid-season. Dude, you cannot sit here and tell me, oh, the players are selfish for seeking pay. And meanwhile, me, when I've decided I've had enough, I'm not going to say, you know what, I'm not the guy for the job, and I know that. And so I need to prepare the next guy in. Or I need to say, you know what, as unfortunate as it is to these current group of seniors, I need to set up arrangements for the future. Y'all are just cutting and leaving.
Yeah.
And beyond that, last time I checked, was Jim Larranaga a Miami lifer? Did he start as a graduate assistant and just work his way up the ranks at Miami?
No.
He was at George Mason, correct?
He was, yeah. Had a Final Four run there as well. Yeah.
And why did he leave George Mason after their Final Four run?
To take a better, bigger opportunity in Miami. Yeah.
It's never any fun when the rabbit has the gun, because it was easy when the players had to wait a year, but coaches never had any type of restrictions on their movement. It was easy when Tommy Tuberville was leaving recruits at dinner to go hop on the jet and take a new job. It was easy when coaches were telling players and telling everybody who would listen, I am at the University of, I am at good old State. There is no better place for me than this place. And then secretly talking to his agent, anywhere but here. If you can get a bigger deal, great. But if you can't, get me out of here. It was fun then. But in the words of Denzel Washington and Remember the Titans, it's not fun anymore, is it? Yeah. Is it a bit of fun? No, it's not fun.
I mean, the other part of this, though, is Miami's off to an awful start on the hardwood. If they weren't 4-8 right now, maybe he sticks it out till the end of the season. Like, I mean, because if Miami was 8-4 right now and looking like they may have a competitive year in the ACC, maybe Coach L would have said, hey, I'm just going to make this my last ride. But it's been such a dreadful start. I mean, Miami's best win so far is over Presbyterian. Like, they beat a church team, apparently. That's their best win so far. And yeah, so Coach, and again, like, I don't love the timing of it. I honestly, if this is something that's been weighing on him for the past year and a half, maybe you make this decision before the season starts. But,
Exactly.
but one of the things that Laranaga is 75 years old, by the way. One of the things he said in his press conference this afternoon was, I'm exhausted, he said. Like, I think all of this, in addition to how much the game has changed. I mean, you talk about now the rabbit having the gun. Jim Laranaga has been doing this for 5 decades plus. He's been in coaching. And coaching a college basketball team, because we talk about how crazy football is with NIL and the transfer portal. Basketball is even crazier. Yeah. Like you mentioned 8 players after a Final Four run said, Coach, I want to enter the portal because I'm looking for a better NIL deal. Like that's literally half of your basketball team. Like that football is bad, but you don't have like 50% of your roster, unless you're Marshall. We don't have 50% plus of your roster talking about entering the portal. So college basketball coaching has changed more in the past 3 years than it did in the previous 50 that Jim Laranaga was involved in it, right? And he told another story about how it's like this has become a common occurrence now dealing with agents when you're recruiting players and getting players to board. Like, agents used to not legally be involved in this stuff back in the day. And now you've got agents telling you, hey, Coach, maybe if you up your offer to 1.1 million, you can get in the mix for this guy. So college basketball has become so transactional. And if you look at, the coaches that the ACC has lost within the past couple of years, Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Jim Boeheim, Tony Bennett, Mike Bray, and now Jim Laranaga. And shout out to Tim Reynolds from the Associated Press for putting this all down there. All those coaches have left the ACC in a relatively short time frame. And also Kenton for Miami, their former women's basketball coach retired abruptly a little bit before the season started. Katie Meyer. I mean, I respect like her time. They had plenty of time to go find another coach. Tricia Cullen was doing a really good job. So the timing of this one was a lot more precarious with Jim Laranaga. But I mean, the ACC has underwent so many changes over the past couple of years in hoops.
And that's what I'm saying is you bring up the Katie Meyer situation and how different it is. And that to me is a coach that actually is like, hey, this is changing. It's different, but I care. Yeah. Because it's changing and it's different. But because things are changing, it doesn't give you the right, doesn't give you, I'm sorry. I'm never going to be the type of guy that gives you leeway for certain things. And leaving players when they're like, oh boy, we suck. Well,
yep. See you guys.
Safe. Hey, y'all take it easy. He's hitting them with the old Bane. No. They're expecting one of us in the wreckage, brother, because that's what in essence is happening here with like, I'm jumping off the plane. I'm going to land safely wherever I land. I'm good. But you suckers, you all are stuck with this terrible team. And now, congratulations, you don't have a head coach, a unifying voice. But hell, maybe my unifying voice wasn't worth anything anyway, and that's why we're 4-8. I just think that the timing of it is very disappointing. The reasoning is understandable. The reason I'm never going to sit here and say a 70-year-old has to keep working, okay? I'm sorry. I'm not that guy, never going to be that guy. Some universities in the ACC are just bringing in 70-year-olds. More power to them. Great luck. Let's see how that works out for you. But I'm never going to be that guy that's like, hey, you've got to do something. Don't let grass grow under your feet. I am simply against the timing of these decisions.
I agree with you because when I found out on Thursday morning that Jim Laranaga was retiring, like my reaction was, why right now? That was my reaction. Like if you told me Coach L wouldn't make it to next season, I would have fully understood that and expected that. I didn't think he would be the head coach for the 2025-2026 season. But the timing of it was really what surprised me. And I agree with you on that. And we got so much more to talk about on this episode of Locked On ACC because we have, at the time we're having this conversation, there is a bowl game going on right now with Pitt on top of Toledo, 30-20. We're checking out that one. I'm watching all these bowl games with my 6-year-old son, and he just cheers for whichever team is winning the game. So he was all over Toledo earlier in the game. Now he's all over Pitt. There are going to be 6 more bowl games in the next 48 hours involving ACC teams, and we'll talk about what the ACC can do to get some better PR. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're nowhere near done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. we're having an awesome time with FanDuel. I love wagering on all these bowl games, college football playoff games. And guys, it is not too late to get into the NFL regular season action. The playoffs are coming up, but on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, it's not too late to hit up that regular season, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a dub. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Not only can you bet on who's going to win the game, but FanDuel also has bets and props for things like which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure you make our other shows your next listen. Kenton and Grayson do an awesome job hosting Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. We did an emergency episode earlier today for the Jim Larranaga retirement. We bring you so much content on Locked On Wolfpack and Locked On Canes. All right, so Kenton, I had a little freak out. I think so did you when the Game Above Sports Bowl began. And there was no Eli Holstein for Pitt. I didn't realize he was nursing an injury. So David Lynch started at quarterback for the Panthers and had a pretty brutal outing, threw 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. Pitt has also put in Julian Duggar at quarterback, who's having more success. He's got 2 touchdown passes. And Pitt was down earlier. They're up 30-20 now. And so obviously, for the pride of the ACC, because we didn't have a good showing in the college football playoff, we want to have a good showing in some of these bowl games.
Oh, absolutely. That needs to happen. But I think that we shouldn't over-index on these bowl games. And I say over-index on these bowl games because I've said this for a long time. With the new way in which bowl games exist, these are not the same teams that we saw during the season. Like if we're talking, hey, this is a regular season game, what are the odds that Eli Holstein is your starter? He's gonna be the guy, but it's not really that deal. And then we're talking about the fact that the way that the transfer portal aligns with bowl schedules, players are in the portal right now that want to be with their teams or that are happy to leave, but still, had the portal not been there in that way, they could at least have that conversation of, you know what, this is my last game, this is my last hurrah here. I'm gonna go out with a bang, but I'm gonna put some tape on. I'll put some good tape on. But with that being said, I am excited to see so many ACC teams competing in such a short, crammed time. Because I'll tell you, it seems like everybody in the ACC is playing between the 27th and the 28th.
I hate the way the timing of the transfer portal works out. You mentioned we don't really see the same versions of a lot of these teams in the bowl games. I think a good example of that is a game we have tomorrow where 21st ranked Syracuse, we'd be rooting for Syracuse anyway, but Syracuse is taking on Washington State in the DirecTV Holiday Bowl. Now, if it was the regular season version of both of these teams, we would expect it to be a pretty close game. Wazoo had they faded down the stretch, but they had a good year, 8-4. But Wazoo has lost a bunch of key players in the transfer portal, including their stud quarterback John Mateer, who's headed to Oklahoma. Obviously, he's not playing in the game. So Syracuse is favored by 17 points. And I'd love to see me a Syracuse win, but they're not expecting the game to be competitive because Wazoo has had much bigger losses in the transfer portal than Syracuse has.
Oh, Donno, I think you're also forgetting another loss that they had in the transfer portal to the ACC, which may be the biggest of them all. Their head coach is now the head coach of Wake Forest.
That's right. They lost their coach, too. That's right.
So, Wazoo.
And they lost their OC and their quarterback's coach. They got they probably have people from the stands coming down and coaching for them.
Whoever has the highest college football 25 ranking in the Pacific Northwest is going to get to be their head coach for this game. Congratulations to whatever lucky young man, woman, person that is. With that being said, it is unfortunate that it shakes out that way, and that's kind of why I said Syracuse is going to win that game by at least 20 points. Yeah. But I don't want to over-index that to say, hey, Washington State is a terrible program or Syracuse is world beaters. But congratulations to them. Congratulations to Fran Brown, because if I am correct, that would be a 10-win season for them, or am I wrong there?
Yeah, they're 9-3. Yeah.
Yeah, a 10-win season in year one, man, hell of a job, dude. I cannot really think of a way to say that this was anything other than monumental for Syracuse, because you're talking about, again, year one. We all were kind of questioning, he's a good recruiter. What are the results going to look like on the field? Very few moments that you can look at, point to, and say, that's a first-year head coach doing first-year head coach things. And then a bowl game where, I mean, let's be honest, the other team is suffering from attrition in a way that I don't think I've ever seen. Like, if they pulled a Marshall and said, hey, listen, we got too many folks out, go get one of those teams with a high graduation rate, I think they'd be completely justified in doing so.
Yeah, so another game we have coming up this weekend on Saturday, which I'll be at, is the Pop-Tart Bowl in Orlando. You got Miami taking on Iowa State. I got a bone to pick with Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12, because he put out an episode this week where he's like, it's going to be a blowout for Iowa State because Miami has a bunch of opt-outs and Iowa State doesn't. But credit to Iowa State because they have 0 opt-outs. We're not even sure which some of the players who may or may not opt out from Miami. But, Kenton, this game's not going to be a blowout for Iowa State because you know who's not opting out? Cam Ward. He's confirmed it 100 times he's going to play. Damian Martinez is not opting out. Top tight end Elijah Arroyo is not opting out. I have a feeling Xavier Restrepo is going to play. There has been some noise that he might opt out. We may not know for sure until Saturday, but it's like, okay, if Cam Ward was opting out and Martinez, I can understand, maybe an Iowa State blowout. Miami is favored by 3.5 points, by the way. I think it's going to be a good game. Both of these offenses can score. Defense optional on both sides. But I think the Pop-Tart Bowl is going to be fun, and Miami will not get blown out.
Fun fact, I attended the first ever Pop-Tart Bowl in person to watch NC State lose to Kansas State in a toughly contested game in which our opt-out of Peyton Wilson was what hurt us and made it like, hey, we weren't going to win that game. With that being said, looking at this game, the lack of opt-outs on Miami is why I'm picking them to win a close one here. Yeah. Cam Ward, it deserved better than what he got this year in many regards. He deserved better than what the Miami defense did. He deserved better from the national media than what he got. He's going to put on a show in his last ever game and show everybody exactly what he's made of.
Yeah, and Iowa State, they don't rush the passer very well, and it's by design. They usually drop 8 guys into coverage and rush 3, but they give quarterbacks like 3.5 seconds on average to throw the football. That's a good recipe for Cam Ward to get some stuff done. They're also not very good against the run, Iowa State, and I don't think Miami's going to win a blowout either. I think it's going to be a close game. Right. I kind of agree with you. I would lean to Miami probably winning a close one. I think it's going to be a very good game, but like you said, Cam Ward, he's got something to prove because bad taste in his mouth after the Syracuse game where he played very well, but Miami lost that game. He wants to go out on a high note. I think it's going to be a good one. We got the NC State Wolfpack playing this weekend in the Go Bowling Military Bowl. NC State is taking on East Carolina. Wolfpack favored by 6 points. I like that, Matt. Anytime you can make like a good regional matchup in a bowl game, I'm all for it because I would imagine a lot of these players played together or against each other in high school, Kenton. So there's going to be something extra on the line.
Not only that, these teams are playing again in a few months. They're the first game on both of these teams' schedules next season. So there's a lot of kind of things happening in that regard. But also in this game, there are a ton. And when I say a ton, I mean a ton of opt-outs for ECU in this one. It's a situation where you're a little surprised that there aren't more opt-outs from state, but it's really going to crush Eastern Carolina with how many guys they're looking at not having here. I mean, you're looking at a ton of guys who are not just like good, but extremely impactful at areas where, with all due respect, you kind of could not lose guys. So I really and truly think NC State's going to win that one they're going to win and cover. Not because I have on my NC State glasses, simply because NC State's bringing back every pass catcher except Kevin Concepcion.
Right. By the way, how are NC State fans reacting to KC doing TikTok dances in even Miami fans are. And by the way, I don't care what anybody does on TikTok. Like, can you play or not? That's my only question. But
Exactly.
I saw that little dance he did in the Texas A&M jersey was getting ripped. Like, Miami fans are like, we don't even want this guy anymore. Look how corny he is. How did NC State fans receive that?
I mean, it was much of the same, but I will say this. We need to keep in mind that the fringe and and I hate to take Kirk Herbstreit's word there, but the fringe fans, the outlier fans, they're always going to be the loudest, So yeah. we got to keep that in consideration. But I'll tell you, those fans were not happy. They were not happy to see KC, dancing and tripping out, quote unquote, in a bathroom in Texas A&M gear.
Yeah, that was weird. Well, and also, like, I don't necessarily think he's going to end up there, but Belichick and Mike Lombardi are apparently they're trying to get him to visit North Carolina after the new year. Like, it's got to be one of those things. If you're an NC State fan, it's like, you can leave, just don't go there, right?
I mean, listen, if he didn't learn from Jakeem Harris and Big O Adams that both went over there and got whooped on by NC State, hey, maybe the third time's the charm. Maybe you're the guy that's going to turn the program around. But again, that's a soft program run by soft people, and who knows? KC could be the answer to bring them the culture they need. We all know that slot receivers are famous for instilling positive culture at universities.
Another going back to the bowl games, Friday, 3:30 p.m. God, I want Georgia Tech to beat Vanderbilt so badly. Oh. So Georgia Tech, they should have gotten so much more national respect. And quite frankly, the ACC should have gotten so much more national respect from all the overtimes that they put Georgia through in Athens. People just kind of forgot that game even happened. It was like, well, it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. Then they're going up against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had a very mid-year. I mean, 6-6, but they beat Alabama this year. So I want Georgia Tech, and I think GT is favored in that game by 3. So it's basically basically a toss-up.
I don't know what's happening right now, but I'm sending my thoughts and prayers to Georgia Tech because they have to – oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just got word from my closest sources. They're not playing hypothetical Vanderbilt, so they'll be fine. I was concerned that they were going to have to play hypothetical because – the SEC is, in fact, 11,669 and 0 in hypotheticals. So right. I'm very excited that they get to play the real-life Vanderbilt because I think that they'll have a good time in this game. I think they'll win this game. I think they'll win a close one, but I think they'll win. Losing Singletary is a tough loss on the outside. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. However, with Haynes King and Jamal Haynes in that backfield, with the way that they run the ball, with the way that they can be extremely physical when they want to be, I think that works in their favor against another team that's also physical, also disciplined in Vanderbilt, but I think they have a little bit more talent. With all due respect, you saw it in the Virginia Tech game, that Virginia Tech lost. They did everything that they could to give that game away, and Vanderbilt still acted like they didn't want it. They still acted like they didn't want that spot. So while this team can beat the world beaters, the 1985 Bears, while that team can beat the greatest football team ever to be assembled, the All Madden squad, I believe that the real version of the Vanderbilt Commodores will be taking a loss to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets here.
No more hypotheticals. Now, hypothetically speaking, how can the ACC get more favorable national coverage? We'll talk about that more when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. There's nothing hypothetical about Game Time. In reality, you get the best prices on tickets, especially at the last minute. And guys, I hope you were like me, and for your holiday gift giving, you were giving family and friends the gift of awesome tickets and amazing prices from Game Time. And it's not too late. It still is the season, and sporting events, concerts, they bring people together. That's what I love, bringing my family together, getting great seats at sporting events. That's what's been going on this holiday season. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to live events even easier, because Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Other features I love at Game Time All-in pricing feature shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view in the app from your seat right there before you buy. See exactly what you're going to be looking at on the field or at the stage, whatever. They have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and they'll give you $20 off your first purchase. How about that? Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Kenton, I think it was Tim Brando who sent out an X post about this, because we talked about it earlier this week, how Kirk Herbstreit, who's one of the more influential college football hosts out there, Herbstreit has had a long career, reputable, respected. He's on TV talking about how we shouldn't look so much at wins when we're making up a college football playoff bracket, that it shouldn't matter how many wins you have. It's who you beat. It's hypotheticals, all this stuff. Tim Brando made a great point. It's like, so for the ACC, ESPN operates the ACC network. I feel like Jim Phillips or whoever in the ACC front office needs to sit some ESPN executives down and say, listen, we have a multi-million-dollar TV deal with you. You operate the ACC network. What do we have to do to get a little respect? It's like, I'm not saying I want these ESPN hosts to lie, the way they often lie for the SEC. Okay, but fine. Obviously the SEC historically strongest football conference for the past couple of decades. I get all that stuff, but you would think the ESPN has such a vested interest with the ACC. There's got to be some way to get them to give you a little more respect and a little more coverage.
Yeah. So here's what I want to say about that. You look at the panel of college football or college game day, right? All across the board, who do you have that has a meaningful stake in the ACC, that coached there for a long time, played there for a long time? Anybody along those lines? The only one that you got is Lee Corso, who, with all due respect, to say that he lost his fastball would be the understatement of the century. That would not exactly be fitting, to say the least. You don't have anybody there with hey, the ACC deserves respect because I've seen it. I've been there. I've played there. I played in Lane Stadium at night. I've experienced all these things. And so you talk about, hey, ESPN runs ACC and ACC Network and all that. ACC Network can do everything that they can. They can run all the good content that they can. Although I do think that some of the games being blacked out or subjected to local when ACC Network is national is a little bit loony. But even when we move beyond that, on the biggest stage is where you need your ACC representation. The Big Ten has the representation. Even if you say Kirk Herbstreit is an SEC guy all day long, you know who isn't? Desmond Howard.
Right. Yeah.
Desmond Howard's going to tell you, hey, the Big Ten is all right. We do our thing. Whoop-de-woo-woo-woo. You want to say, well, who do they have for the Big 12? Last time I checked, old Pat McAfee played up in Morgantown, didn't he?
That's right. He did. Sure did.
Oh, okay. He'll never let you forget it either. He's very proud of that program. And so you look around and you say everybody else has some type of representation on the biggest show. With all due respect, Big Noon Kickoff ain't the biggest show. You're not number one. No. You're not. You'll never be number one. College Game Day is number one. That is where people go for their information in terms of sports. And where is the ACC representation on College Game Day? It does not exist. And if y'all need to elevate me to be the ACC's Paul Feinbaum, I'll do it. I'll be the ACC propagandist.
You're already bald?
Don't let them tell you that I can't be bought. Don't let them tell you that my soul does not have a price, okay? Because I'll get up there and tell every lie for the ACC. I'll get up there and make the ACC undefeated in hypotheticals. I'll get up there and say, oh, well, this win doesn't matter and that win doesn't matter, just like anybody else. But in all seriousness, there needs to be that guy, those guys, those gals to say, hey, this is what this looks like. The ACC is our conference, and we're going to wear those stripes with great pride. It just doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, we need to do something. We appreciate everyone's time as always. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to Locked On ACC. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. Hopefully, nobody retires before our next episode. ACC coaches in basketball left and right the last couple of years. We'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.